I'm currently sitting on the bathroom floor. The tiles are cold, I've got a bag of frozen peas pressed to my temple, and in my left hand is a phone that does not belong to me. This phone, sleek, older model, no case, and absolutely not my husband's, is lighting up with a message that says, "Can't wait to feel you again tonight." Let me rewind. My name's not important. Let's just say I'm a mid-30s woman with a decaf addiction and a once charming husband named Mark. We've been married for 6 years. No kids, 2 cats, and a fixer-upper in the suburbs that I painted myself because Mark works too much to deal with baseboards. We used to be great. That's the part that messes with you. How real was any of it? Mark used to be magnetic. Funny, generous with compliments, and just the right amount of cocky. He made me laugh, opened my doors, and introduced me to the concept of 401ks and properly seared steak. I felt lucky. Like, I had won some kind of responsible husband with good credit lottery. Then, slowly, things changed. It started small. Little comments about how I dressed. "You don't need to wear that much makeup, you're already cute. Natural is better." Translation: don't wear red lipstick, it makes you look like you're trying. Then it was friends. "I don't really like when you hang out with Jessica. She's kind of a bad influence." Translation: anyone who reminds you of who you used to be before me is a threat. Then it was money. We had shared finances, but somehow I never knew how much we really had. If I spent too much, I got the silent treatment. Or worse, lectures. I started to shrink myself without realizing it. Wore neutral colors. Stopped talking about kids or dreaming aloud vacations or the pottery class I wanted to take. I thought I was keeping the peace. By the time we hit year 6, our conversations revolved around bills, work, and whatever he was mad about that week. He was always tired. Always stressed. Always on his phone. If I asked questions, "Why are you being paranoid?" If I brought up therapy, "I'm not broken, you just overthink everything." So yeah. I started doubting myself. The tipping point happened last week. He came home late again, smelling like hotel soap and someone else's perfume. When I asked where he was, he said his phone died and he crashed at a friend's place because the client dinner ran long. That same night, I was folding laundry when his work jacket fell off the bed. Something heavy thunked on the floor. I picked it up. It was the phone. The other phone with dead battery. It was hidden deep in a coat he never wears, mostly because I told him it made him look like a Bond villain with debt. At first, I didn't even believe it was real. Who has 2 phones in 2025 unless they're a drug dealer or a cheater? When he got home, I didn't say anything. I slid the phone into the bottom of my sock drawer and pretended to be asleep. This morning, while he was in the shower, I charged the phone and tried a few passwords. I tried his birthday. It opened. And just like that, everything I was afraid of became undeniable. The texts were from different women. Some he saved under fake names, Tom, Dad's number 2, even CVS, I'm not kidding. He was running a damn code system. Some messages were flirty, some were just disgusting. There were photos and voice notes. Receipts for hotel bookings. One of the texts was sent the same night he told me I was emotionally exhausting and stormed out for air. So now I'm in the bathroom. I confronted him, and it didn't go well. I asked him what the second phone was, and he laughed. Said I must be having a hormonal episode. When I tried to leave the room, he grabbed my arm harder than I expected and I hit the wall. Hence the peas. He's downstairs now, slamming cabinets. I locked the bathroom and called my best friend, but she's 3 hours away. I'm not sure what to do. I just needed to tell someone, to scream into the void. To give at least a little of my burning pain. And I'm definitely not going back to normal. After Mark cooled off, or maybe just got tired of yelling at a locked door, he knocked once, real soft, and said, "I'm sorry. You're overreacting, but I'm sorry you're upset." Which is classic Mark speak for I'm not sorry, and this is somehow your fault. I didn't respond. Just listened as he walked away and turned on the TV like it was a normal Tuesday night and I hadn't just found proof of a double life. I finally came out after midnight. The living room was dark. Mark was asleep on the couch. I took the opportunity to move the burner phone into my purse and grabbed my keys, just in case. In the morning, he acted like nothing had happened. Made himself coffee, scrolled through headlines, even asked if I wanted toast. I said no. He shrugged like I was the one being moody. That's when I realized something. Mark's power came from pretending nothing was wrong. If he could convince me that this was just a rough patch, or that I was dramatic, he could keep his secrets and I'd keep losing my mind. Not anymore. After he left for work, I sat down and went through the burner phone properly. Despite the pain, I really needed to look at that phone again. A message to another woman, she's being clingy again. Probably hormonal. And worst of all, a screenshot of our wedding photo, with the caption, "Still stuck." But not for long. He had joked about me to someone else. Using a picture of one of the happiest days of my life. I couldn't look at the screen anymore. I texted my best friend Jess everything. She offered to drive straight down, but I told her to hold off. I needed space to think. That afternoon, I did something that felt small but huge. I drove to the bank and opened my own checking account. Mark has always handled the money stuff. Now I am sure, it was just a way to keep me financially blind. Next stop was a legal aid office. Just to ask questions. The woman there was calm and kind and gave me a folder with info about separating assets, how to document abuse, and what not to do, like suddenly draining joint accounts. Tempting, but no. Back at home, I played nice. Didn't bring up the phone. Let him think he'd won, that I had dropped it. He was weirdly cheerful. Said he might be up for a weekend getaway. Right. Let me guess, somewhere with a hotel and no cell service? But later that night, while he was in the shower, I pulled up our shared phone plan online. I didn't even know I had the password until I tried our cat's birthday. It worked. And there it was, his real phone, my phone, and a third line registered under his name. Business use. Activated 6 months ago. 6 months. That's around the time he stopped touching me. When he said he was burned out and just needed space. When the hugs became shoulder pats, and his phone never left his hand. I just sat there in the dark, holding the folder from the lawyer's office and looking at our wedding photo on the wall. He had lied so easily. So many times. And I'd tried so hard to believe him because, what? Because the idea of starting over was scarier than the idea of staying unhappy? But now I had something better than proof. I had clarity. After a couple of days of me playing possum, Mark started acting like a new man. Suddenly, I was beautiful again. He brought home flowers, grocery store daisies, but still. He made dinner one night. It was takeout sushi, but he plated it, and if you've lived with a man who thinks salt is a spice, that counts. I thought maybe he sensed guilt. Maybe part of him still cared? Spoiler, he didn't. He was just losing control, and when men like Mark feel that, they go into performative, good husband mode. So I let it simmer for a bit. And then I planned the confrontation. I picked a Friday night. The weekend before his business trip. I cooked dinner, my grandma's lasagna recipe that takes 4 hours, a bottle of red, even set the table with cloth napkins. Basically, the opposite of the crime scene this house has been for the past week. He walked in and smiled like he'd just won something. Wow. This looks amazing. What's the occasion? I smiled back. I just thought we could talk. You know, reconnect. He looked relaxed. Like he thought he'd successfully gaslit me into submission again. Then, I slid the burner phone across the table. He froze. For a full 5 seconds, he didn't say a word. Then he looked up at me with the fakest sad eyes I've ever seen outside of a bad soap opera and said, "Where did you get that?" "It's not mine. That's not even my phone. Someone must have planted it, maybe someone at work trying to ruin me." "Why are you spying on me? This is a serious violation of trust." He went from denial to deflection to full-on Darvo mode: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. He even had the nerve to say, "You're doing this because you can't control your emotions. You're always so insecure. You used it to message 3 women last week. One of them sent you a voice note saying she missed your hands." His mouth opened. He looked like a fish that just realized the water's gone. Then he flipped the table. Screamed something about how I was ruining everything, and how Heath wasn't even happy, and how I never appreciated him. Dishes crashed, wine soaked the rug. I just stood there. He yelled for a good 2 minutes. Then stormed off to the garage. I picked up the mess in silence. I wasn't even shaking. Something strange happens when you hit the absolute limit of what you'll accept from someone. You go calm. He didn't come back in until after midnight. I was in bed, fully dressed. He didn't apologize. Just climbed into bed and sighed real loud, like he was the victim here. The next morning, he tried the old soft voice routine. "I just felt cornered, you know? You make me feel like I can't breathe. You can't seriously think one little mistake erases everything we've built. One mistake." I nearly laughed in his face. I wasn't going to let him drag me back into the spiral. That woman, the one who kept trying to fix us, was gone. Instead, I nodded and said, "You're right. Things have been off. I need space to think." He looked relieved. Like I was finally falling back into line. He didn't know that while he was in the shower, I'd taken photos of every incriminating message, saved them to a secure cloud drive, emailed them to myself, and printed copies for good measure. He didn't know that I'd changed all my passwords. He didn't know I'd made an appointment at the bank to begin the process of removing myself from every shared account we had. He thought I was folding. What I was actually doing was preparing to leave. You can't argue with someone who's rewritten reality. You can only exit it. Let him keep dancing his gaslight tango. I've already left the floor. Mark left for work Monday morning like nothing had happened. I called out sick from work. Told them I had the flu. I grabbed my laptop and car keys. First stop was the local storage unit facility. I signed up for a small unit under my maiden name. Didn't need much, just somewhere to move things without him noticing. I figured if I moved 1 or 2 bags at a time, I'd be invisible. Second stop, the bank. I applied for a credit card in my name only. By noon, I was back home, grabbing a box of old clothes and stuffing them in the trunk. 1 box, no questions. By Tuesday, I had started gathering paperwork. Pulling copies of mortgage statements, car titles, tax records, and stuffing them into a folder labeled recipes. I found a second credit card bill tucked between utility statements. New account. Opened 6 months ago. Thousands in charges, restaurants, hotel stays, a random jewelry store in Vegas. That night, I asked him how his day was. He said, "Long." You wouldn't get it. Sure. Because betrayal must be exhausting. On Wednesday, I took our cats to the vet. Routine checkup, I told him. In reality, I updated their microchips with my mom's address and asked the vet to put a travel note on their file. I also finally met the lawyer I'd called the week before. Her office smelled like lavender and legal doom. Her handshake was firm, her voice, calm. She gave me 3 steps. Get everything financial documented. Move sentimental or irreplaceable items into safe storage. Do not tell him anything until the paperwork is ready. Done. By Thursday, I'd made 6 separate trips to the storage unit. Every time Mark went for a run or took a shower, I moved something. Every trace of me, packed away while he was still pretending we were healing. That night, I asked him if he was still going on his weekend business trip. He nodded, barely looking up from his phone. Yeah. Leaving in the morning. You gonna miss me? Maybe. Friday morning, he left just before 8 a.m. Black duffel, the good watch, and his favorite sunglasses. He said, try not to be dramatic while I'm gone. The second his taillights disappeared, I moved. Took the burner phone out of its hiding spot and left it in the center of the dining table, face up, screen unlocked. Under it, a note, I'm done. Then I loaded the cats into their carriers, zipped my final bag, and locked the front door behind me. That weekend, I stayed at my mom's place. First time I'd slept through the night in months. Sunday morning, a storm of texts hit my phone. Where are you? You better not touch my stuff. We can fix this. Then came the voicemails. The classic Mark two-step, apology and blame. I didn't respond. Instead, I met with my lawyer again Monday morning. We filed the papers, sent them certified. I included a typed summary of everything I'd found. Screenshots, passwords, credit card statements. By Tuesday, Mark had been served at work. He showed up at my mom's house that night, banging on the front door like a lunatic. Mom didn't flinch. She pulled back the curtain, saw who it was, and calmly called the police. They gave him a trespass warning and told him to take his tantrum elsewhere. I haven't seen him since. Life now is quieter. Not always peaceful, but definitely mine. It's been 6 weeks since I left, and I've done more in those weeks than I did in the last 3 years of that marriage. I moved into a small, second-floor loft above an old bookstore. It smells like paper and fresh paint, and the radiator hisses like it's got secrets. The landlord is 82, lives downstairs, and bakes banana muffins on Sundays. Her name is Mrs. Dupree. She told me I looked haunted but hopeful on move-in day. Meanwhile, Mark was imploding. Apparently, getting served divorce papers at work didn't sit well with Mr. Charm Offensive. He sent me 6 voicemails over the course of a weekend. The last one ended with, "This isn't over. You think you're strong, but you'll fall apart without me." I saved it. Forwarded it straight to my lawyer. She added it to the file and said, "Thanks, that's gold." The second week, I changed my number. Sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's a spark quietly passed from one woman to another, lighting the path out. Week 3, I went on a date. Just one. A guy from the gym named Evan. He smiled a lot, complimented my laugh, and didn't once make me feel like I had to shrink myself. We shared a bottle of wine, talked about podcasts and bad tattoos, and at the end of the night, he walked me to my door and said, "You're not ready for anything serious, are you?" I shook my head. He smiled again. Didn't think so. Still, it was a good dinner. No pressure. No expectations. Just a moment that reminded me the world is full of better men than the one I left. Week 4, Mark showed up. Outside my new apartment. Arms crossed, face pale. I saw him from the upstairs window. He didn't even know I was watching. He didn't knock. Just stood there for maybe 5 minutes, looking at the door, like he expected it to open just because he wanted it to. He finally turned and walked away. I watched until he was gone, then called my lawyer again. We filed for a restraining order the next morning. Week 5, I got the final divorce paperwork. A thick envelope slid under my door, sealed and official. I stared at it for 10 minutes, hands shaking. Then I opened it, signed the last page, and walked straight to the post office. It was raining, and I didn't have an umbrella, but I didn't care. I mailed it and stood there in the drizzle, face tilted up, soaking wet and smiling like an idiot. A woman walking by said, "Are you okay?" I laughed and said, "I think I'm finally getting there."